Here's more wrestling news for April 21st, 2023, and we're starting with NXT. And when the show rebranded to NXT 2.0, an array of new superstars debuted, including the powerhouse Von Wagner. Not just an impressive specimen, Wagner has a background in WWE as his father is the tag team alum Bo Beverly, and WWE has very big plans for the second-generation star. During Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer stated that Wagner is already being considered a future WrestleMania main eventer by some, but that hinges on his charisma improving. While Wagner has proven himself to be solid in the ring, his mic work has been a serious chink in his armor, though a manager could certainly help with that. When Wagner debuted, many predicted he and Braun Breaker would be the standout stars of NXT, and though Breaker has become just that, Wagner hasn't had the same rise to the top. During a recent episode of NXT, Robert Stone reminded Wagner of his family heritage and that he belongs in wrestling, and if his charisma improves, we could see him on WWE's grandest stage of them all soon enough. Do you think Wagner could one day walk down the aisle of WrestleMania in the main event scene? Share your views on the NXT superstar in the comments. In April 2022, Zelina Vega vanished from WWE TV due to what was described as a medical issue at the time, and it wouldn't be until October that she would return with the debuting Legado del Fantasma. At the time of her return, WWE gave no more explanation as to why she had spent close to 7 months out of action, but now we have our answer. While speaking on the Out of Character podcast, Zelina revealed that she had a ruptured implant during a match with Rhea Ripley, but things turned out for the best. I had a ruptured implant from Rhea, but you know what? Again, I've said this before in a joking way, it actually worked out for the better because things happened and it sucked at first, and now I'm like, oh, we're good now. They're better than ever, and everyone's happy. My husband's happy and everyone's happy. So yeah, it worked out. Interestingly, Vega's name has been thrown around as an upcoming challenger for the SmackDown Women's Champion, which explains why the LWO and the Judgment Day have been at odds as of late. That match is expected for Backlash, though WWE hasn't announced it yet, and Vega will have to be careful to avoid a repeat of what happened last time if the match happens. When Gable Steveson turned down the likes of AEW, UFC, and the NFL to sign with WWE in 2021, expectations were understandably high for the Olympic gold medalist. Unfortunately for WWE, Stevenson's career as a pro wrestler has gone far from smoothly, and we now know what exactly WWE had planned for him. Speaking on his show, Dave Meltzer stated that the plan had been for Gable to finish his college wrestling season and immediately commit to being a WWE superstar, including making a handful of appearances on Raw. While Steveson wouldn't be competing on these shows, his appearances would build to a match at WrestleMania in which he would have squashed Chad Gable, but that obviously didn't transpire, and the closest we got was a single suplex on Gable last year. After winning Olympic gold, Steveson returned to the NCAA and won the championship, and the plan had been for him to retire from amateur wrestling to focus on being a superstar. Steveson has had his WWE career delayed due to surgery for his Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, but Meltzer reiterated reports that he hasn't shown the desired progress in training, stating that he hasn't lit the world on fire by any means. Steveson recently tweeted that he just wants to wrestle, which some have seen as him expressing his displeasure at WWE, but with his attempts to compete in Paris in the 2024 Olympics, it'll likely be a long time yet before we see him in the ring. But what do you make to WWE's second ever Olympic gold medalist? Is he a future WWE World Champion in your eyes? Sound off in the comments. Since arriving in New Japan, Mercedes Moné has faced some of the best women competing in Japan, but the IWGP Women's Champion has plenty of names still to face. During a Twitter Q&A, Moné was asked about her dream opponents in New Japan and named Kenny Omega, Zack Sabre Jr., and Sonata. All three men are current champions in the company, and while WWE has often swerved away from intergender wrestling, it could be a reality for Moné in New Japan. Speaking about her finisher, the Money Maker, Mercedes said that she learned the move while in Mexico, and it was Juventud Guerrera who helped her create the move. It is the moneymaker that scored Mercedes the IWGP Women's title in February, and she hopes the move will help her retain the title against Mayu Iwatani this weekend, as the former Sasha Banks has big goals for her New Japan run. This time last year, Sasha Banks was riding high as one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, and nobody could have predicted what was about to happen. For years, Banks, now Mercedes Moné, had been one of the top stars in WWE's women's division, but that didn't stop her from signing with New Japan. Speaking to Sports Illustrated, Moné gave her thoughts on leaving WWE, the company she watched in her youth, and said that the allure of a fresh start was too tempting. The ultimate goal for a lot of professional wrestlers is to make it to WWE. That's what I thought was the big time, but I did that. I wanted to make new history, and the place to do it is here in Japan. Japan has the highest standards for women's wrestling, and I want to set the standard in New Japan. Moné has certainly reached the highest standards in New Japan, as she is the biggest name in the women's division, and given her mainstream success with The Mandalorian, is arguably the biggest name among non-wrestling fans in New Japan, period. Moné recently teased that she will be moving to Japan full-time and is learning Japanese, implying that her time with the company is far from over, as she plans to set the standard for a long time to come. When SummerSlam tickets went on sale last Friday, seats for the August show were quickly snatched up, and the event had the highest one-day ticket sales on record for a non-WrestleMania event in the United States. Now, typically, some tickets are snatched up by scalpers who will go on to list the tickets for resale on a higher price, but that won't be the case this time. When WrestleZone's John Clark reached out to Ticketmaster, they were told that resale for the event has not been activated by WWE at this time. If WWE doesn't activate resale, it means those scalpers will be stuck with the tickets and will have plenty of free space at Ford Field unless they can find 50 or so friends to go with. What do you make to this decision by WWE? Do you think it'll stop scalpers, or will it just stop people from selling their legitimately purchased tickets that they can no longer use? Sound off in the comments. If you've seen Joey Janela in the ring, you'll know that the bad boy isn't afraid to get violent, but Janela won't be competing for the foreseeable future. On Twitter, Janela revealed that after being burned during a match, the burn on his arm is only getting worse, meaning he won't be able to wrestle at GCW this weekend. Janela explained that the burn is on the joint of his left arm and is dealing with real mobility issues in the limb, but that he will still be in Atlanta and Orlando to sign autographs and sell merchandise. Janela suffered a second-degree burn on his arm during his last match in DDT, where he fought Japanese legend Atsushi Oneida in an exploding barbed wire death match. The burn itself happened when Janela took an exploding baseball bat to the arm by Oneida, and he had been scheduled this weekend to face Brian Keith and AEW's Commander. As for who will replace Janela, that information isn't known at this time, but we are wishing the bad boy a speedy recovery. At the 2019 Royal Rumble, Nia Jax took the number 30 spot from R-Truth to compete in the Men's Rumble, becoming the first woman to compete in a Men's and Women's Rumble on the same night. Jax's time in the Men's Rumble would not last long though, as she would be taken out by multiple superstars and even took an RKO from Randy Orton. Sitting down with the Wives of Wrestling podcast, Jax recalled feeling nervous before the spot, but was reassured by the former WWE World Champion. She said, "I said I've never taken the RKO. I've never taken the 619. I don't want to f this up. Are you kidding me? Like, these are some of the biggest moves in wrestling history, and I'm about to take this live, and I've never taken it before, and I just remember saying, Randy, I don't want to f this up. Should we walk through it? Do you want to RKO me in the hallway?" And he was just like, "Kid, don't worry." He's like, "Just turn to the left and just ride with me." Jax's 3 minutes in the Men's Rumble match was ended at the hands of Rey Mysterio, but after making a surprise return in this year's Women's Rumble match and teasing a return to the ring, who knows when we'll see the Irresistible Force next. Last month, CM Punk caused a stir on social media when he posted about the autobiography of Steve Keirn and a chapter about moving on from backstage drama. Many took this as a sign that Punk was speaking about the All Out 2022 controversy, but it turns out Punk's connection to the book is much closer than that. On the Cheap Heat Productions podcast, Keirn, who played Doink the Clown and Skinner in WWE, spoke about Punk writing the foreword for his book as the two became friends during the AEW Stars OVW days. Keirn said, CM Punk was almost shocked when I asked him to do the foreword, and here's the reason why. It's because CM Punk doesn't go back with me through 3 generations. CM Punk came into my world when I was an agent, but had watched Skinner and had watched The Fabulous Ones, and he was a guy that studied the industry and watched old films, and he saw Steve Keirn in his prime, and he gave me respect. When you go to high school with Hulk Hogan, how much better does that get? And he lives right here. Well, if I do that, ask Hogan to write the foreword, then I'm utilizing my relationship and friendship with them to attract people when the story is not about them, it's about me. And I'd rather somebody that's not a fully close friend do a foreword so he can say, well, I don't know why he asked me, but let me tell you what I think of him. Punk isn't the only other wrestler who contributed to the book, as there's another foreword by Stan Lane, as well as an afterword by WWE's own Natalya. Keirn was a true journeyman in wrestling who worked under various gimmicks and in various roles in various companies, and he was clearly thrilled with what Punk had to say in his book. And we're ending with Brock Lesnar, as it was in the early 2000s that Gerald Briscoe discovered Brock Lesnar. And since then, the Beast has become one of WWE's biggest success stories. A 10-time world champion, multi-time Royal Rumble winner, and former Mr. Money in the Bank, Lesnar has an incredible record in WWE, but his real-life record isn't spotless. In 2001, after signing with WWE and working in OVW, Lesnar was arrested and charged with steroid possession after a suspicious package was found with him. Lab tests eventually revealed that the package's contents were not drugs, but it wouldn't be until 4 months after the initial arrest that the charges were eventually dropped. While the case obviously didn't stop Brock from becoming a megastar, it could have been seriously bad for him and WWE if it turned out he was in possession of substances he had no right to have. Had Lesnar's situation gone differently, it's very likely he would have been sent packing by WWE and would have never become a star in the ring and later the UFC. But thankfully the Beast has been able to have one epic career.